Every day, without realizing it, you use a system older than your country, more powerful than your government, and more mysterious than any institution you'll ever see. A system that controls the price of your food, the value of your savings, and even the rise and fall of entire nations. But here's the paradox. If governments print money, why don't they control it? If central banks manage currency, who controls them? This is the Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing about the world's money supply is as simple as it looks. Money, the single most influential invention in human history. But the real twist is this. No one actually controls it. Yet a small circle of institutions influence all of it. To understand how we got here, we have to go back. Far back, to a world where money wasn't printed, but mined. The origin story, gold, kings, and the birth of control. For thousands of years, money was simple. Gold, silver, copper. Its supply was limited by nature. A kingdom could not spend more than it owned. A war, a famine, a collapse. All of it was constrained by the amount of metal in the treasury. But kings hated limits. And in 1694, England found a way around them. The country was bankrupt after decades of war with France. The king had no gold left, but he had something far more valuable, the future. Merchants agreed to finance the crown in exchange for a stream of interest backed by future taxes. A new institution was created to manage the arrangement, the Bank of England. And with that single move, the world changed forever. For the first time, a government spent money it didn't yet have. Debt became money. Credit became power, and the control of the money supply moved from kings to bankers. The spread, the birth of modern central banking. France copied the idea. The Netherlands perfected it. And when the United States was born, Alexander Hamilton insisted on it. A central bank, not to print money, but to control its flow. By the 20th century, every major empire had one, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Industrial economies needed more money than gold could provide. And so nations embraced a new formula. Money equals trust. Debt equals currency. Confidence equals control. The gold standard collapsed in 1971 when the United States finally broke its link to gold. From that moment forward, money was no longer backed by metal. It was backed by belief. And belief is something that can be managed. The modern system, the illusion of control today, every country claims to issue its own currency. But that's not the full story. Governments don't decide how much money exists. Central banks do. Central banks don't print most money. Commercial banks do. They create it digitally every time they issue a loan. Here's the secret the average citizen never hears. Most of the money supply is created by private banks, not governments. When you take a mortgage, that money didn't exist before. It's typed into existence. A number on a screen. An IOU that becomes currency. Governments regulate the system. And that's the first layer of control. The hidden layer: markets, traders, an invisible power. Behind every currency lies another power. A quiet, relentless force no government can ignore. The bond market. Governments issue debt. Investors decide the price of that debt. If investors lose confidence, interest rates spike, currencies collapse, and governments fall. It happened in Greece in 2010, Argentina repeatedly, Turkey in 2021, Sri Lanka in 2022. Markets can overthrow leaders without firing a single bullet. They don't need armies, they need fear. This is the second layer of control. The global WEB, the IMF, World Bank, and Bretton Woods legacy. After World War II, the world created a new financial order. The IMF, the World Bank, and the US dollar as global reserve currency. What started as reconstruction became something far larger, a system where countries borrow from global institutions, and global institutions set the rules of money, currency pegs, credit ratings, structural reforms, austerity programs. These decisions can reshape entire societies. The United States controls the dollar, but the dollar controls the world. This is the third layer of control. The real puppeteers central banks, but none of this compares to the true power brokers, the modern central bankers, Jerome Powell, Christine Lagarde, Kazuo Ueda. With a single announcement, they can slow economies, crash stock markets, inflate housing bubbles, or cause global recessions. They decide interest rates. They decide bond purchases. They decide liquidity. Governments pass laws. Central banks control reality. In 2008, the Federal Reserve created over $1 trillion to rescue the financial system. In 2020, it created even more to prevent collapse. Not by printing money, but by typing it into existence. One keystroke, and the world changes. This is the fourth layer of control. The shadow network, sovereign wealth funds, and BlackRock. But there is still another layer, one rarely mentioned. Vast pools of capital that rival the power of nations. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. Combined, they manage nearly $25 trillion, larger than the GDP of the United States. And then there are sovereign wealth funds. Norway, Saudi Arabia, China, Singapore. They buy companies. They buy land. They buy influence. Their decisions shape markets, which shape central banks, which shape governments. When they move, the world follows. This is the fifth layer of control. The paradox: who controls what? So who really controls the world's money supply? At first glance, the answer seems simple. Governments print money. But follow the chain long enough, and you uncover the truth. Governments issue currency, central banks regulate currency. Commercial banks create currency. Markets price currency. Investors move currency. Institutions reshape currency. No one controls money, but everyone influences it. Money is not a tool. It is a belief system. A global religion powered by trust. And trust is the rarest currency on earth. The future, the coming shift. But this system is facing its greatest test in history. Rise in debt, shrinking trust, currency wars, digital money, geopolitical fractures. A world moving from unipolarity to multipolarity. China wants its yuan to challenge the dollar. Europe wants monetary sovereignty. India, Brazil, and Russia are building alternatives. And central banks worldwide are preparing for the next era. CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. For the first time ever, governments and central banks will control money at the code level. Every transaction, every flow. Every dollar. The greatest consolidation of monetary power since the creation of banking itself. And yet, the same paradox will remain. Money will still depend on belief, confidence, perception. The ultimate controller of money is not a government, not a bank, not a market, but the collective trust of billions. When trust rises, markets boom. When trust falls, empires collapse. The real power behind money is invisible. Conclusion: the illusion that holds the world together. So who controls the world's money supply? In truth, no one. And everyone. A network so vast, no single institution can command it. But so interconnected that the decisions of a few can reshape life for billions. Money is not wealth. Money is not freedom. Money is not security. Money is a promise. A promise backed by trust. And trust is the most fragile asset on earth. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.